Are you ready?
Power.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
I'm building an alliance.
God bless the internet.
Okay, let's party.
It's showtime.
It's time for the Alliance Guys podcast with your hosts Kevin Frazier, Jaden, DKM, and Jay Cal.
Hey guys, check this out. I am officially now sponsored by Dubby. Dubby is a clean energy drink made to give you focus with no crash. If you guys are like me, you're always needing a burst of energy, especially with one with no crash. Dubby contains vitamins, amino acids, a nootropic, and 150 milligrams of caffeine. It keeps me awake with no jitters, guys. Check it out. Merch link is in the bio. Dubby. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Alliance Guys podcast, a presentation of alliance-wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. My name is Jay Cal, and of course, with me is Jaden and DKM, who's going to be no.
Fine, I'm leaving.
No, I mean, that's what your name says. It says you're going to be no.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was going to shorten that much.
DKM is going to be in Nolans with your boy Jay Cal. Of course, I know Dave Scooby's going to be there. I think some of you guys are also going to be there. Whoever's there, you better make sure to slide into my DMs. I would like to meet you. I'd like to shake your hand, maybe even buy you a beer or something. I don't know. But it'd be great to see all the Alliance guys and the hashtag NWA fam. And, of course, Jaden won't be there. Jaden, what are you doing this weekend?
Probably working.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I got to make that money. Dr. Zirconium doesn't pay me well enough, so I have to do other forms of entertainment till my OnlyFans kicks off, at least.
All right, Jaden After Dark, everyone. And DK, I know you're going to be leaving tomorrow morning, driving in that rain. What do you expect on your journey to Nolans?
A lot of tears.
Are you going to be stopping at like a Whataburger or like a what else? What's the famous fast food places out there?
Whataburger's here in Texas, so I have one right here in my hometown.
I'm sorry.
Hey, DK, I've actually wanted to know this. Do you have a Buc-ee's?
A Buc-ee's.
Do I have a Buc-ee? No.
In your area?
Are there Buc-ee's around me? Yes.
Okay. I always wanted to go to Buc-ee's. I don't know why, but it's apparently a thing you do in Texas.
Well, you
shoot people.
You got to get beaver nuggets.
You go to
a beaver nugget?
Yeah, that's what happens when. Oh, wait a minute. That's a different thing I'm talking about. You can see that on my OnlyFans.
That's on his OnlyFans page. Buc-ee's in Texas, right? And then Wawa when you get to Jersey, right? Right, Jaden?
Wawa's great. And I do love a good Wawa, but there's plenty of good places in Jersey. What we don't have is an In-N-Out burger. But apparently that's a big thing in Cali.
Yeah, that's kind of like our thing now. They have In-N-Outs in Texas. They have In-N-Outs in Arizona and in Nevada. But
I've been to one.
What do you like? Okay, sorry guys, little fast food talk here. I know people who love Whataburger and hate In-N-Out. I'm on the other side. I love In-N-Out. I wasn't a big fan of Whataburger. I also heard the more closer you are to Texas, the better the Whataburger is. I had it in Arizona. I wasn't a big fan. What did you think of In-N-Out, DK?
I really like the cheeseburger.
Yeah.
The rest of the stuff I got, was not impressed with the fries. But the cheeseburger itself, and, when I get a cheeseburger, it's like, meat, cheese, mustard bun.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I really like that. The meat was well seasoned.
The next time you go to an In-N-Out, which might not ever be again, but ask for a Flying Dutchman. It's off the secret menu. It's basically just 2 patties fried in mustard with cheese on top. Delicious.
Chef kiss.
Yeah.
You people need to learn how to actually taste something. Mustard is for things that taste like crap, so you put more crap on top of it.
All right.
Do you think are you thinking I'd rather have
at least it's not avocado.
exactly.
Yeah.
Wrestling with MMA wants to share his love for rallies and checkers. Jaden, I know that's a special spot for you, those checkers out there in Jersey.
Let me tell you about checkers. I love checkers, but it's a one-way relationship. Checkers does not love you back. Checkers is like marrying a Karen and then divorcing a super Karen.
That's what you leave in the bathroom. Dave Scooby says the B style at In-N-Out are great. He means the animal style fries, and they're not for me. But if you love like the I don't want to call it the Italian dressing, but the special season that they put on special sauce that they put on burgers, they basically do that with grilled onions and cheese on the fries, and it really is a completely different animal. And Luthez says, hey, when we all come out to St. Louis next year, by the way, I've confirmed it with Tim Wood from NWA Gold, also the other Alliance guys. He's going to be in St. Louis next year. I'm going to be in St. Louis next year. I'm going to try to talk DKM into coming to St. Louis next year too. But Luthez says, do not fail to hit the High Point Drive-In next year when we come to the 75th near the Chase, and they have the car from Good Burger. The car from Good Burger?
Welcome to Good Burger, home of the Good Burger. Can I take your order?
DK, why are you so close to the camera?
I'm trying to find the Buc-ee's.
Fair enough. Hey, so did you guys hear any good gossip lately?
Yeah, I kind of hear a couple things. I heard that a couple people might be leaving, and I even heard they ordered an oversized belt that's incredibly huge. It can fit a whale, and it's still smaller than the old NWA women's title.
Still smaller than the 73 pounds of gold.
Yeah, the legendary 73.5 pounds of leather and gold.
Those are good old times.
Hey,
real quick,
let's not exaggerate. 72.5 pounds of leather.
Sorry. Real quick, my pal Larry is in the chat on their Facebook.
Wait a minute,
Larry,
you have friends?
Yeah, I have a few friends. I met Larry at the 70th anniversary show. We met with a man wearing sunglasses and a mustache. We met through him, but since then have remained pretty good friends. We were at the Crockett Cup together in 2019, and I got to hang out with Larry in Atlanta at the Championship Wrestling from Atlanta television tapings at Center Stage. So cool to see Larry in the chat. I hope to see Larry sometime, maybe at the 75th. Maybe we could talk him into going to St. Louis. And
why are you trying to talk people into being tortured?
The more the merrier. I'm a glutton for punishment, but I hate being alone. I've got abandonment issues. What do you want to hear, Jaden? What is this? Some sort of psychology class?
Yes.
I do have a degree.
Oh, well, fair enough. Nathan Ogden, who I don't think has joined us before on a live, said your so-called champion Aldis has taken his ball and gone home. Well,
yeah, he was told to go home.
Nathan, this might be the first time you've ever watched this show, but he ain't my champion. And as much as I hate to see Nick Aldis go, and that's a legitimate 100% fact. I don't want to see him leave the NWA. It sucks, especially that he's leaving on bad terms. But I'm all right with it. I've come to terms with it. I'm good. He hasn't held a world title in over a year now. He lost the 10 pounds of gold at the 73rd anniversary show and has had one opportunity to regain the title, and he failed to do it. He hasn't been pushed towards the top of the card. He's been mid-card at best since losing the title, and I'm perfectly all right with that. 100%.
It's
Willie
weird.
real quick wants to remind us about bigger than Tyrus's pie eating heavyweight championship.
May end up being his new pie eating championship there, Willie.
Yeah. And then Nathan says, let Nick Kong buy out Billy Corgan. I don't know what benefit that would do for anybody, to be quite honest with you. Nick.
I think he probably means Tony Khan, because Nick Khan doesn't actually own anything with wrestling.
Yeah, you're right. And I kind of bit in on that too. You're right. Nick Khan, WWE, I think COO. Tony Khan.
Co-CEO now.
Oh, he is the CEO. Tony Khan, obviously the owner and operator of All Elite Wrestling, who owns Ring of Honor as well. I just don't see where owning the NWA would do anything beneficial for any of the three brands for Tony Khan. I mean, he's already got product, pouring out the woodwork on YouTube and on TNT and on TBS. I don't think he has room for any more additional wrestling.
I know how to help him out. He needs more belts.
Please never say that again.
You're going to kill me before I go to New Orleans. I don't think Tony Khan has any desire to do anything with the NWA at this point. If you wanted to talk about legitimate people buying the NWA, there are companies out there that would make sense. I could see Impact Wrestling. They've really struggled to have an identity since the NWA left. I could see that being a potential suitor for the brand. I could see New Japan Pro Wrestling buying the NWA and rebranding their New Japan Strong into the NWA. I could even make the point that maybe MLW could be interested in the NWA. I sure know Dave Marquez would be happy to own those three letters, but I don't think any of the major primetime players would be interested in the NWA as it stands today. That's just my 2 cents.
Well, let's talk about, since we're bringing these subjects up, let's talk about Nick Aldis.
Yeah. So let's talk about Nick Aldis. I spent exactly 24 minutes on Tuesday talking about how I thought that this was going to be okay. That, yes, Aldis had a lot of contributions to help the NWA. And to be quite honest, we wouldn't have the NWA as we have it today if it weren't for Nick Aldis. But I also have been arguing the point that no one piece is greater than the whole. And even though that Aldis is now done with the NWA, it doesn't really anchor. Let me rephrase that, not anchor, but doesn't really. It's not going to hurt the NWA the way some people think it is. Jaden, now you've got your heart and head in pro wrestling. I mean, you've grown up around the sport. You currently help in the backstage roles with Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators and the World Wrestling Grand Prix. Tell me, somebody like Nick Aldis, what went wrong and what's next for him? What do you think?
Here's the problem, and it's the problem I'm getting from a lot of people in the NWA. If there's a lot of people who do not believe in the 20-year plan, quotes, air quotes, of Billy Corgan. A lot of people do not believe that Billy Corgan's booking the NWA at its best to truly showcase what the brand has. There were a lot of people who've talked to me who very much miss Dave Lagana.
I've been hearing that a lot this week too.
Yes, and there are a lot of people who do not believe that Billy Corgan, despite watching all the old school wrestling, truly understands old school wrestling, that instead he is 100% a product of the Impact Wrestling mentality of the past, where it's throw a bunch of stuff together with no logic or sense just because it's all they have to take advantage of the few talents that they have, so they have to do whatever they can to make themselves look bigger or special or something. And there's not a lot of confidence, from what I'm told, in what Billy Corgan can do as the person in charge of the NWA. And that's the problem with a lot of wrestling promotions and promoters. A lot of promoters aren't in the wrestling company or in the wrestling business to run a wrestling business successfully. They're in there to play with a bunch of toys, and they just happen to be real life toys. And that's kind of what the NWA is to Billy Corgan, in my opinion. Is it's just a bunch of toys for him to play with and let him pretend to be a promoter. It's downloading EWR on the internet back in 2001, but this time instead he's got some real life characters to play with. Honestly, Nick Aldis is one of the best things to happen to the modern NWA. I know that Jay is not a fan because he rightfully calls him the ham sandwich jabroni that he is. But he was the best thing to happen to him. Yes, bad booking and too much of Nick Aldis kind of screwed up a little bit, but he was a bright spot in the company then when there wasn't a lot of it, and when there were starting to show promise and good things, he was a bright spot there. Here's what I think, though. I think this is the best thing to happen to Nick Aldis. Nick Aldis needs to get away from the NWA. Okay. He's being pigeonholed now because of it. Now, if he does even a lateral, or in some cases, I guess it's probably just a lateral move going back to Impact, and he makes a big deal of it, it really won't do much for Nick Aldis. But if he goes to even something like MLW, or if he goes to AEW, or he's chosen to go and be part of the new European expansion of the NXT WWE brand, or whatever he does, and in that I listed, it could potentially make him a bigger star and help any one of those companies be something better. If he gets to those companies and gets over, even at 75% of what he thinks he was over, or what they try to get him over in the NWA, or what they were saying he was over, if they give him 75% of that push in any one of those companies, it's going to be great for Nick Aldis and great for those companies. Yeah. The problem is, and if it does, you know what that does? That justifies everything Nick Aldis has said. It justifies everything Nick Aldis has done with the NWA, and it puts even a higher negative light on Billy Corgan. If he doesn't, at least he'll be a good piece and a good pawn or good piece on the board to help any company and help some young people learn.
Well, let's put this into perspective real quick. Number one,
that's scary.
Yeah. Number one, I will take no umbrage with the fact that Nick Aldis called me a ham sandwich eating jabroni. I'll own that. That's fine. That phrase actually raised about $80 for the Juvenile Diabetes Research Fund last year. So I'll take it.
It's better than being known as a chicken slinger like another former NWA champion called you.
Well, and even more than that, it also did help light a fire, man. Like, he was right. And since then we've now hit over 1,000 subscribers here on YouTube, and the social medias are all over 1,000 as well. Like, I think except for maybe Instagram. I think we're still struggling there. But regardless, I don't fault him for those thoughts and for what he said, because I am critical of Nick Aldis. He felt like we were attacking him. I felt like I was being critical, and there's a huge difference. And Nick Aldis, in his first run as world champion, might have had one of the greatest runs as NWA World Champion in the modern era. It was amazing. What he was able to do in about 9 months dwarfed almost anything he did after that. In fact, it dwarfed everything he did after that. Being able to take the title to China, being able to take the title to the United Kingdom, taking the title to Australia. These are things that he did, of course, with partnerships with Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, House of Hardcore, and obviously his UK bookings were done well before he won the 10 pounds of gold. All that being said, phenomenal wrestler, great mouthpiece, and was the guy. He was the right guy to lead the NWA into this new era. Now, I don't know if I needed 1,000 days of Nick Aldis as world champion through the pandemic. I certainly didn't appreciate the lack of anything that happened during the pandemic, and then taking accolades for something where you weren't even actually wrestling at the time. But that's neither here nor there. He was a great champion. He still is a great champion. You can't take that away from him. But like DK and I were talking about before the show started, a lot of his accolades that are so much celebrated aren't as great as you think. Now, DK, you and I were talking about his run with Global Force Wrestling, his run in TNA Wrestling. Of course, he had a multiple tag team title championship runs in Impact and its promotions that it was working with. He was the Ring Ka King champion. But tell me what you think about Nick Aldis and his time before the NWA, DK.
Well, I was still semi-watching Impact. I kind of come back to it when he was there. just before he won the title. And I kind of liked him enough that I was hoping he'd do the title. Then I thought he was horribly booked when they actually, excuse me, can't breathe. When they actually put the title on him, because they turned him heel and they, threw out the word paper champion, and he wasn't beating anybody or beating anybody cleanly and blah this and blah that. And he was really badly booked as champion, and didn't get any real credibility out there other than just, years later people go, oh yeah, he was an Impact World Champion, or TNA World Champion as it was known at the time.
Yeah.
But, it was already on their downward trajectory. So it's not like he was even champion at any of their hottest times.
Right.
So, and then he held the Global Force title that Jeff Jarrett created. But let's face it, what did Global Force do? And if you say the word nothing, you're closer than anybody else.
Well,
and he came back to TNA Impact as Global Force Champion, where he immediately dropped the title. And so it's just one of those. He wasn't well booked, and his other things weren't well done. He wasn't well known outside to the small group that followed Impact at that time. So it's, I made sponsor us, please. I made the comment, I go, you can easily say that Matt Cardona as Zack Ryder was whatever, far better known than Magnus / Nick Aldis. So, and that's not to put down anything he did as NWA champion. His first ring was great. The start of his second ring, a little bit stiff. Yeah, he held the title for over 2 years, but let's be honest, pandemic probably prolonged it. He rarely defended the title, and none of the world champions in any of the organizations defended the title that much. But he never really got back into the kick of what he was. Once Power happened, he didn't really work the indie scene anymore. I mean, in a lot of ways, Power's done more damage to the NWA World title than anything else, because they don't talk about title defenses outside of the NWA. They kind of live in this little cutoff world, and unless the champion is as champion as a go-getter, they don't really get booked anywhere. It's not encouraged in the sense of, let's go out there, let's work with these promoters, and please, put over the fact their champion's going to be out defending the title somewhere.
I'm going to slightly say it may not be 100% Aldis's fault, though.
No,
because I've been told by a couple of people that when the title was actually being defended in other promotions and mentioned, it wasn't because of Billy Corgan, it was because of Dave Lagana. And I am told that while Corgan is not against them using the NWA championships to get bookings and to increase their stature, he doesn't care or want anybody else to know that the NWA title is defended anywhere else besides the NWA.
So let me just bring up something real quick. The NWA started Power. Literally, the first tapings were September 30th, 2019. When Aldis won the championship back in 2018, defeating Cody at the 70th anniversary show, he defended the title in Maryland for MCW at WrestleCade, at some other promotions, House of Hardcore, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, in the UK at IPW and PCW. He was working with the NWA did the event with New Year's Clash. That was the event with Tried and True Pro Wrestling. They were working with Ring of Honor. There are other other indies, ASW, World Legion Wrestling, again, more Ring of Honor. But once the first episode of Power hit, again, that was in September of 2019, those indie dates almost became non-existent. Now they had an event called the Modus Madness that was with I think that was at the time that was with Ken Anderson's wrestling school. There was AML, there was North Pro Wrestling, there was the Independent Wrestling Expo, there's 127 Pro Wrestling and Magnum Pro. Oh, and then the T-Mart and the MAW event. And I know that sounds like a lot, but we're talking that's in a span of 3 years. Now, also that was during the pandemic, so a lot of the wrestling slowed down. But even after some of the restrictions were let up and we had more title defenses, we had more wrestling promotions happening, the amount of defenses dropped significantly once Power started. And the title defenses on Power and outside of the NWA just dropped. We weren't getting that same Nick Aldis that we had in the first run. And you're right, Jaden. To your point, that's not necessarily Nick Aldis's fault. However, just as an example of what the NWA is, what it's supposed to be, what we were used to, it looked very different once Power kicked off.
Well, it wasn't Nick Aldis's fault in the sense that the NWA wasn't going out trying to find these promotions to work with.
Right.
So that they could get the titles defended. It was Nick Aldis's fault in the sense that Nick Aldis could have gone out and hustled himself.
We know that Thunder Rosa did that during the same stretch of time.
And, well, I mean, we see Camille doing it now. We see Scion doing it now. But, yeah, they were never ones to the NWA, Billy, and even when Lagana was there, once Power started, it was the same way. They were never ones to care about any title defense that wasn't something they had set up themselves.
Right.
And, you know, that's their nature. And
real quick, I want to read this question that Carlton put up, or statement, I guess you should say. Nick Aldis brought back the NWA to relevancy. The NWA is going to do bad real quickly. Ask this question. Could EC3, Trevor Murdoch, or Matt Cardona couldn't carry a company but leech off of someone? What I'm going to say to that, Carlton, is the NWA, remember, this wasn't a one-way relationship. It wasn't like Billy Corgan handed the belt to Nick Aldis and said, make my company relevant. There was a lot of moving pieces, especially early on. When the NWA announced its purchase from Bruce Tharp when the Lightning One era kicked off, I mean, you didn't just have Billy Corgan behind the scenes. You had Dave Lagana, like we've already mentioned. We had David Marquez, who already had a complete wrestling program on television that literally just gifted time to the NWA, literally made their show available for the NWA to showcase its champions. You know, I don't even know if you get the 10 Pounds of Gold series if you didn't have Championship Wrestling from Hollywood to film this stuff. And yes, Aldis did take that title to a lot of places, but again, Aldis doesn't travel the world if David Marquez doesn't book him for China, or if Tommy Dreamer doesn't book him for House of Hardcore. And to be perfectly honest, it was the title that Dave Marquez booked. I can't specifically say what Tommy Dreamer was looking for, but each one of those matches that he had in Australia was for the 10 Pounds of Gold. So I think if that would have been Tim Storm, there could have been a good chance they might have booked Tim Storm. Now, maybe not. I don't have the proof for that, but I do know, and I give all the credit in the world to Nick Aldis for getting those UK bookings. Those were all done even before he had the title.
Well, let's also remember Nick Aldis was like the third choice.
Yeah.
I know Drew Gallows, Drew McIntyre in WWE was one of the people they were looking at beforehand until he got called back up to NXT. You know, they call him, put it back in NXT, and I cannot for the life of them remember who the other guy was off the top of my head.
Well, Eli Drake was one of them. Sean Ricker, LA
Yeah.
Knight. He was on that list. I know that there was some talk that, and this is where my memory is a little mixed up. I could be wrong, because at the same time, Dave Marquez was looking to crown his first United Wrestling Network World Champion, and obviously that took a long time to happen. But Johnny Moss was considered for that, and I know that Fergal Devitt and Carl the Machine Gun Anderson were both considered for Dave's title. But I think, and I don't remember if Cesaro, Claudio Castagnoli, if he was an NWA idea or United Wrestling Network idea, or maybe both. But I know that at one point his contract was coming up, and a lot of people didn't think he was going to renew.
Yeah, I just honestly don't remember. For some reason, Moss sounds like it might have been the one. But, Aldis was the third person. And, the whole point of the early part of our discussion is that Aldis in and of himself was not a known superstar. Now, Aldis can cut a promo, which apparently I cannot.
Yeah.
And, he's got the look, you know.
If you know, you know.
And if you know, you know.
That's right.
And he has enough skill in the ring. I like Aldis.
I do
but
too.
I'm going to be the first to tell you, he's not the best worker. But he has an air about himself, and he carries himself well as a champion. And these are the things that matter. I mean, you can go back and look at what Adam Pearce did when Adam Pearce was champion.
Yeah.
Which was 98% Adam Pearce.
Yep.
And what Kevin Frazier did when he was World Junior Heavyweight Champion, which was 97% Kevin Frazier, or Kevin Douglas, as he was
even the Sheik. As much as I don't like saying that dude's name, even he did a lot for the NWA as champion in that short time by himself. It wasn't like the NWA booked him to wrestle in 0-1. It was 0-1 in the Sheik that made that work.
Yeah, could they have picked somebody else and still gone on and had a successful, if this is a successful run? And we're going to talk a little bit about that because of supposedly one of the claims that was made recently by Billy Corgan. But, could they have picked somebody else? And then, I think if you get the 10 pounds of gold going, you almost could have put the title on anybody that had some skill and some talent.
So just, I'm gonna pause right there. I'm gonna ask two questions. Number one, my first question is, at the time, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood was bringing in some larger name talent. They had brought Brian Cage back for a few tapings. They brought Jack Hager in for a few tapings. They brought in Alberto El Patron in for some tapings. I don't think that you could have put the world title on any one of those guys and got the same mileage that Aldis did. But I think there are other people out there that could have driven the NWA under that set of circumstances.
Well, if you separate out Patron's legal mess and the fact that the guy's a horrible, horrible human being, and the fact that he had a tendency to no-show, again, you put the right person, you put the right story for that person. Who the hell knew who Adam Pearce was or knew anything about Adam Pearce?
That's 100%.
When Adam Pearce first won the title, he was heavily criticized as the choice.
Who the hell is this guy?
Oh, he's just an ROH mid-card guy. He's a lower. He wrestles the second match. He was, he's the ROH gatekeeper. Blah blah blah. Yeah, people were horribly critical of Adam Pearce, and even people that did not know him in the sense of like they were criticizing him because of where he was on the ROH card. I remember he came to Texas for one of his early title defenses, and the guy here didn't know him from, the original Adam. And he said, he just doesn't really carry himself like a champion. You can tell it's new to him. But, 6 months, year in, after his first title reign, he was carrying himself like a champion. He knew it by his third title reign, which was probably his best title reign. He was arguably the top indie guy out there. And so, let's see, Eli Drake would have been a better champion out of the gate. Aldis did great, but became tiresome. I think Eli Drake, and this is one of those things where, I don't know what personality traits are full on. I think Aldis is more or less himself. I think the guy that goes out there is pretty much who he is. And I think Eli Drake, you wouldn't necessarily have had the overexposure. But again, a lot of that's Billy's booking. So if Billy sends whoever the champion is out for every show and gives them 10 minutes to speak on every show, I think anybody could become tiresome.
It's true. I remember I used to be a manager, and I would manage a couple of people. And if I was out there a few times, I did what I need. I got the crowd going. I made them hate me. But there was a promotion that put me out there like 6 or 7 times. Plus I was doing commentary. By the time I was done, I hated myself and didn't want to see me anymore. So you can imagine how the rest of that crowd felt. Because even though I was the only one getting any major reaction, it's way too much. Too much of anything is a bad thing.
And so that's where we struggle, is that I don't always know where some of the lines are drawn. But I mean, could it have been Jake Hager? I don't know. He doesn't have a strong personality, but then again, they put Aldis with Austin Idol at first because they hated me. And then, even though Camille didn't talk, they had to put somebody else out there for him. So it's not, you put Hager with the right manager. Yeah, he has the wrestling ability. He has the wrestling talent. Another
Kind
guy,
of huge with Dutch Mantel.
right? But it's, it's hard to tell. When somebody's not really given the opportunity and has not been used well in their big show appearances, then it's hard to say, oh, well, this person would be successful or this person wouldn't be successful. I mean, let's remember Barry Horowitz won lots of titles on the indie scenes as a heel who was well liked because of his WWE run. And Jay disappeared, so I don't know what we're talking about anymore.
Well, I still think we're talking about Aldis, and I do think Aldis was the right man at the time, and I do think he was a major part of the NWA success, and I do think he can go somewhere else and contribute to any company that does use him from this time forward. Again, depending on booking. It's hard. You can't blame bad booking on the wrestler unless they're a person doing the booking.
Now, here's something I want to talk about a little bit because it affects how we kind of look at things. But supposedly, one of the issues between Aldis and Billy was Aldis felt like Billy had disrespected Mickie James when it came to Empower. And the stories don't quite make sense, but I don't know if they're talking about the original Empower or if they're talking about her wanting to do Empower again this year, which he was opposed to. And they did not do again this year. And I think one of the things that supposedly has been said, now I haven't listened to a lot of interviews, read a lot of stuff, but I've been told different things by different people, and I don't remember who's told me what half the time. But supposedly, Billy claimed Empower lost money. And that's why he wasn't interested in doing it again. Which would be an interesting statement if he actually made it. And I don't know that he did or he didn't. If anybody out there knows, be sure to let us know where. But Empower would have been something where he didn't pay for all the talent that was on there. Impact paid for some of the talent they sent. Tony Khan whined that he should get full credit for Empower because he paid for the AEW talent that went. So if that didn't make money, even though it sold out finally at the end, so add about 800 people. And I'm betting its pay-per-view buys were as close or maybe even more than the anniversary show.
I bought the package because I wanted to see Empower more than I wanted to see the anniversary show.
Right. So then that would lead to the question. If Billy were being honest and saying that Empower lost money, wouldn't that almost mean all his pay-per-views lost money? Because I don't see how that one, which would have sold more tickets than most of them and probably had a high buy rate compared to a lot of them. So, I mean, is he basically acknowledging that his pay-per-views don't make money?
Well, no, he would have never acknowledged that. That's the truth, too. He would never acknowledge that. And I really doubt any of his pay-per-views do make that much money because look at how many tag teams have to come into the Crockett Cup, even when they only do 8. So they got to pay those tag teams, and then they usually pay a bunch of champions, and they usually make it a couple of nights. Even if they sell out 800 tickets times 2 is $1,600, 600 tickets, there's still the cost of running the pay-per-view. There's whatever the cost fight gets. There's the advertisement cost. There's everything else associated with that. I don't know what his profit margin is on NWA pay-per-views, but I can't see them being high. I always just assume they were loss leaders to get the company name out there.
Well, under theory, now this goes way back to the beginning when Power started and the pay-per-views, and this was a Dave Lagana statement. Dave Lagana basically claimed that, they started with a pay-per-view and then, or no, I guess they actually did do a run. But the idea was that the pay-per-view was going to pay for the set of tapings that followed, which is why there were basically only tapings after the pay-per-view, because that's where they made their money to be able to do the tapings. James Bell says he did an interview this week, I believe, where he said he lost money, but that is not why they didn't hold another event at this time. Yeah, he supposedly claimed something to the effect that there were not enough women who could do the NWA style of wrestling, but I don't know what the NWA style is. This is more sports entertainment based than anything, and I would say they have plenty of sports entertainment based people. I think what he really means is that he couldn't get enough names this time around that would make it attractive, because I doubt Impact or AEW would send anybody this time, especially AEW. What would Luthez do says, no, Second Empower this year was definitely an oh moment for me when I heard that would be the case. Yeah, it surprised me, but only in the sense that was probably my first clue that there was something going on between Billy and Nick, since that was, Empower wasn't Billy's baby. It was Mickey's baby. And that did kind of clue me in that maybe there was more going on behind the scene. And then Jay came back.
Hey guys,
Jay, did you hear anything we just talked about?
I heard a little bit about it. I had to walk away from the computer for a moment, so I didn't hear the most recent thing.
Well, we were talking about the fact that Billy had made a statement that he had lost money on Empower, and that may or may not have affected whether he chose to do another Empower.
Well,
but I was making the statement. I go, if that's the case, then he's had to have lost money on all his pay-per-views.
Yeah,
because that sold more tickets than any of the others. So I'm sure it had a pretty high buy rating because there were a lot of people interested in that one. You know,
what I understood is basically this: that it was his thought that there was no reason to do a second one unless it could top the first one, and the fact that he did not have access to any more AEW talent. He just felt like it was kind of unnecessary. It was never supposed to be a annual pay-per-view. It was like, hey, we're going to do something to empower people. And he empowered the women's division while, accepting help from AEW and Impact. And he said that he was going to try to do a second one and had some discussions early on with Impact, but just felt like they couldn't top what they already did. Now, I don't know if I agree 100% with what's being said about that, but I can also understand, like, hey, if you can't improve on what you've already done, maybe you shouldn't do a second one.
Well, I've said in past shows that things like that only work if they're special. You start doing them every year, and they're not that special anymore. I think we saw that with Crockett Cup in the 80s.
Yeah.
Where attendance tanked after just, 3 years of it.
Yeah.
Now here's my thought on what Billy was saying, or at least what you were saying, what Billy was saying.
Yeah.
What they lost was AEW television coverage. The Impact women's roster was better around the second time that they were doing would have done the second Empower. And there was a lot of other free agent talent out there that they could have used. And what they didn't have is that publicity being on TNT and the people out there.
I think you just hit the nail right on the head, because you're right. Like, the talent wasn't that much better. I mean, look, Legit Layla was a fine opponent for Camille, but does Legit Layla sell a pay-per-view?
AEW sent their C team.
There was no one that was on that pay-per-view that was better than what's available now. You know what I mean? Like, Chelsea Green was on that pay-per-view, but she's still available. She's working with the NWA. Kylan King is working with the NWA. They could have got, if they could have worked with Impact, they could have brought in, the virtuoso Diana Perrazzo. They could have brought in, what's her name? Tasha Steeles. Or hell, they could have done nothing with Impact and worked with somebody like what's her name? Marie Kanellis Bennett and the WWA, the all women's division. Hell, I'll take it a step further. There's a little wrestling promotion that has TV. It's basically a television show that has a lot of somewhat good women's wrestlers, some of them really good, called Women of Wrestling. And they could have done something with them, because they're not running annually either. They're not running every month. They're running quarterly television taping, just like the NWA is. I think that would have been very mutually beneficial for both parties if they would have partnered with somebody like that to do a pay-per-view.
They could have had the former Iconics, or the Inspiration, or whatever they were called, for they work in Impact at the time.
Sure.
They could have had Tennille Dashwood.
Yeah,
she's now back as Emma. She was available then. There was a lot of women wrestlers. I can't think of, unfortunately, my brain's just stopped at the moment, but there was a lot of women wrestlers available that had some kind of name. Like I said, it wasn't, I really, really don't believe it wasn't the talent. It was the fact that they couldn't get the publicity on AEW that made the difference.
I mean, that was probably key when, it's been so long. If I remember, part of that deal with AEW, of course, was part of the Thunder Rosa contract buyout.
Yeah.
And so that's part of what happened there. We got to be careful in looking at some of these things, like the reasoning. Oh, well, if we can't do better, then let's not do it. Well, that sounds good as a reason to only do it once or whatever. But then you start thinking, I don't know that some of their pay-per-views this year are better than what they put out last year.
No, that's factual.
If you follow that logic, then they wouldn't be doing pay-per-views this year because, quite frankly, they don't have anywhere near as good pay-per-views this year or as interesting pay-per-views this year.
Yeah, no, I mean, and again, we're speaking derivatively of what Billy has said to the public. What the real reason is, I don't know. But I've heard people say, well, Billy doesn't care about women's wrestling. Well, I don't think he would have done that show and continue to put on like women's wrestling within the NWA. I mean, let's face it, the Burke is not treated like a special attraction. The Burke is treated like a legitimate women's world championship, and it's featured heavily on the program. And some of the women they've had challenge for that title in the last just few pay-per-views have been pretty solid female talent. And even though they don't have a very strong tag team division, they brought in tag team titles to help cultivate women's pro wrestling. I can't buy into the fact that people think that Billy doesn't care about women's wrestling. Maybe he's not doing it the way they want him to, but I don't think you can just say, oh, he's poo-pooing on women's wrestling.
Well, sometimes two things that sound contradictory can be true. And that I don't know that Billy cares about women's wrestling.
He might not, but neither did.
But not caring about it is not the same as not liking it or not wanting it. If you truly don't care, that's it. I have a feeling the women's tag team titles were probably a Mickie James thing.
Maybe.
And that it brought up and that it gave him something to do for Empower.
Yeah.
A title did. Because they weren't going to take the title off Camille. So how do you get that title change? I mean, he talked about a women's TV title, and then you've noticed that since this thing has gone with Aldis, that all talk of that title has disappeared.
Yeah.
And so, will they bring it back? Maybe. I don't know. I hope not, because it's not needed.
I also can't remember who I'm paraphrasing. I think it might be Brian Last. But there's not enough top women talent right now in the entire industry. And what is monopolized in some of the bigger companies. And even then, I don't think there's enough top women wrestlers right now. Possibly if they sign some other ones to AEW, they can make it. But there's a lot of women wrestlers on that card that don't really need to be on television. And that's the problem, I think, right now is the only way you can get top level women wrestlers is to constantly feature women's wrestling. And that's something I majorly disagree with Jim Cornette on. About half the country is women, and that's an untapped market that you can get into. But the only way to get the top superstar women wrestlers over time is to have something there for the women to attach to. And while they may not be the great now, hell, half of them are at least worlds better than some of the ones we've had before. Not everybody can be Jazz or Victoria or Mickie James. And there was a lot of WWE divas who also did not belong in any way, shape, or form inside that ring other than to look good. But you need those women wrestlers out there that are mediocre so women can grab a hold and gravitate, so we can eventually have enough women wrestlers out there so every promotion can do it.
And I think if you look at the NWA and who they've used and some of the list of women, like, look, not everyone has been Camille. Not everyone's been a Kylan King or a Taya Valkyrie or even Allison Kay. They've used women who are subpar. We all know this. And not to, stir the pot because she recently departed, but, gosh, I already forgot her name, and she's not even been gone yet. When Taryn Terrell was there, she only had limited matches, and she wasn't what she was in Impact, but she was mediocre. She was there to help get other talent over. We had Melina there who did the same thing. She's a former WWE Women's Champion, and she was a Hall of Famer in some circles, but in the NWA, she was mediocre at best. She was there just to help some of the other talent get over. And I think that's what you have right now with Angelina Love as well, is just someone there to have that veteran presence to help get some of the younger girls over, some of the newer talent over. Luthez is mediocre as the NWA's wheelhouse. Oh, shit. I mean, there's some truth to that. Like, look, there is a lot of truth to that. I mean, we are going to have a TV champion crown between Jordan Clearwater and AJ Kazana. And I don't necessarily dislike AJ Kazana, but this guy doesn't have the win-loss record in the NWA to even be challenging for the TV title, let alone being in the finals to crown a new champion. And the same thing with Jordan Clearwater. As much as I love Jordan Clearwater in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, where he's the world champion, in the NWA, he's a flunky to Tyrus. And he hasn't really shined as a singles competitor in the NWA.
Here's the problem. Not necessarily saying the NWA has mediocrity, but a true value of the diamond doesn't happen when it's taken out of the ground. The true value of the diamonds, it comes after it's cut and shined. So
that's brilliant, my friend.
True value of the diamond is because
it's because of the Beers company, but we'll completely ignore that. But still, the value of the diamond, the perceived value of the diamond, is after it's cut. Well, there's a lot of talent the NWA has that could be considered well above mediocre. EC3, the Pope, Jordan Clearwater. There's a lot of talent that could be shined up and made into stars. But the problem is you need a jewel smith to be able to do it, not some amateur who's got a knife and a magnifying glass and thinks they're a diamond cutter.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm actually going to challenge the statement a little bit, in that mediocre is in the NWA's wheelhouse if we add to the thing by the NWA's own doing. We've talked about before, we've seen Kratos, Pero, Clearwater, and other wrestlers look much better outside the NWA. So if they're mediocre in the NWA, it's not so much because the NWA has mediocre wrestlers. It's because they can't book them.
Yeah.
And Billy and Tony Khan have, more and more in common every time I think about it. And that these are guys that do not know how to book with the idea of building and getting over. And, an example of that is that the one match I'm looking forward to seeing, the World Tag Team title match, had a beautiful story to come out of the last pay-per-view where the Hawkeye were in the world titles and lost and whatever, and something that could have been beautifully told and built but not overdone throughout the course of this tapings. And yet I don't know that they ever encountered each other, really. And then it's not until the very last moment, the last title that they filled for for defenses and finding the top contender for the pay-per-view is the tag titles, where the people they crown are people they should have been building a story with the entire taping.
Yeah.
And so, I know we've kind of gone a long way off where we were originally talking about all this, but one of Aldis's problems, which Billy admits to, is that, this is one of those things where I think when each of them complains about the other, they're probably right.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Look, real quick, let me go off on just a second here. What you just said is so true, because I have heard from my insider sources who've said the same thing. Like, look, nothing that Nick Aldis said was factually incorrect, right? Like, he wasn't comfortable with the direction the brand was going. He didn't like Gags the Gimp. How many of us don't like Gags the Gimp, right? Like, what he was saying, I think most of us agree exactly with what he was saying. I know the caveat to that, though, is would he be saying that if he was booked as the world champion right now? That's a different story. But him talking about the way he felt slighted by Billy and he felt like his wife felt slighted by Billy, I believe that's true. And I also believe that Billy doesn't think he did anything wrong. I also believe that's true.
Oh, like, when Billy said, there's no one that's been higher paid than Nick Aldis and nobody who gripes more than Nick Aldis. I don't doubt that for 1 minute.
Not even the slightest.
Especially when you hear how he was at Primetime Live, whatever those pay-per-view things were.
He was very much said to be. I wasn't there. I mean, I was there at the taping, and I didn't see him after the match. I didn't see him much before the match. I saw him before the event started, and he wasn't in a good mood. He was in a very bad mood, and he poo-pooed on the whole thing, and he came in there like a prima donna and thought that the whole world revolved around him. And maybe it should have, right? Maybe it should have, but shit happens and things went awry. You make the best out of a bad situation. That's what a professional does. I don't understand why he ever went all, I don't understand why he did the way he did.
Some people buy into their own hype. That's the problem.
Yeah.
But also, I hate to use this term, but sometimes artists have a unique outlook to their art form. And I think that's the same with wrestlers. The only thing that sometimes makes a wrestler great is he believes he's great. And then he's good at making anybody else believe he's great. So sometimes to believe you're great, you have to put out the air that you're great.
Yeah. I'm with you on that one. I think the disconnect comes from you don't have to like everything that I do if I'm booking you, right? You don't have to enjoy everything that I'm doing. But the minute you start going public, right, and talking to the dirt sheets or just literally sharing it on your own social media, putting down the product when you're still getting a paycheck, I do feel like there's I feel like that wasn't right. I feel like, and this is where I agree with Billy Corgan, which I don't agree with him on a lot of this, but I agree that Aldis should have said, okay, keep my head down. Here's my notice. I'm going to do what I need to do to get through the next 53 days or whatever it was. And then at the end of it, I'm going to go do whatever's next. He didn't need to. So when he blocked me on social media, he sent me a message to tell me that he blocked me. And it's like, hey, this isn't an airport. You don't need to announce your departure. And the same thing could be said here in this situation. Look, there's 101 different reasons why you move on from any job. And in the world of pro wrestling, what more could he have done in the NWA to solidify his status within the NWA? It's time to try the new, to see if the grass is greener. It's time to try free agency. Maybe AEW would be interested. Maybe WWE would be interested. But to go out there and start shit talking the company that literally put you on the map, because let's be honest, Brutus Magnus was not getting the same hype that Nick Aldis was, and Brutus Magnus was on a nationally televised opportunity program. It was on on Paramount Plus or whatever that channel was, Spike TV. He was in the NWA, and people sung his praise because they had a very good working relationship. And I don't know, at the end of the day, he did it to Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, start poo-pooing on Dave Marquez. He didn't get what he wanted in the NWA, and now he's poo-pooing on Billy Corgan. I think that's very unprofessional, and that's something that I don't think was a good move.
Yeah, it's not smart. And look, he's been there 5 years, about the same amount of time that Adam Pearce was on top.
Yeah.
And it's about the same amount of time that Harley Race was on top.
Yeah.
Ric Flair was kind of the enigma that he went forever, and probably longer than he should have even. But yeah, it's time. And even with like Taryn Terrell, she came out, she made a big deal over the fact that she was at least getting to announce it first. She was kind of professional in her announcements, in her thing, wishing everybody the best. Typical, rah stuff. Some stuff has come out since that said, well, maybe she wasn't happy with them either. Maybe she wasn't, but.
And you know what? That's
and typically when people leave, they're not. Somebody's not happy with somebody. Either the promoter's not happy with them, or they're not happy with the promoter.
Yeah,
and that's fine. But at least the way she handled it was, I still don't think the best, but better.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, okay, so I don't know how her contract was structured, and I really don't know how Nick Aldis' contract is structured, other than that he was under contract until the end of the year. He could have done a lot of different things. He could have asked for his release. He could have. There's so many things he could have done that he didn't do. But at the end of the day, it's
that
done.
We know of.
Yeah, right. That we know of. But at the end, but with all that being said, it's done. And no matter what Nick says at this point, no matter what Billy says at this point, the relationship's done, and it's time to move forward. Now, I know Nick Aldis will be on Busted Open tomorrow, I believe. I know he did an interview with not Sam. I know he's a wrestling personality, but I'm not super familiar with him. So, I mean, he will get his message out there as well, and you'll hear probably him lay into Billy Corgan just like Billy Corgan laid into Nick Aldis. And he'll probably call Billy Corgan a mark for himself and all kinds of stuff. But at the end of the day, the legacy that the two built together has brought us to this point. And now it's done. And now it's time for new stars to step up. It's time for new talent to emerge to the top. And look, let's be honest, Nick Aldis hasn't been booked at the top of the card for almost a year now. He had the main event match at Crockett Cup, and he lost. That was a Matt Cardona match. That wasn't a Nick Aldis match. So, I mean, I don't know why everyone's acting like the world is falling, like the sky is falling, the world's coming to an end because Nick Aldis is leaving. Yeah, I thought he was a great talent. I'd like to see him back someday. But you know what? The NWA will survive. They always do.
It will be interesting to see who they do hang their hat on now.
Oh, 100%. And like, look, the rumors out there right now. Tyrus is going to win the title. The rumors are out there right now. Matt Cardona might win the title. And there's so many things that could happen. But at the end of the day, Saturday is almost like the first day of this new NWA. It'll whatever happens, it's going to be different.
Well, yeah, we won't know where it's going next. Somebody somewhere reported, that since he was on the Fox News, stuff like that, but that some Tyrus merch, I don't know, a bendy, something.
Oh yeah, the bendies, and I think that's the Matt Cardona. I know that they make bendy figures on his podcast, like they produce their own action figures, I guess, the bendy figures, and this was one of the top selling.
Yeah, I was going to say, apparently Tyrus is one of the top selling ones.
But it's real easy. It's real easy to buy a toy off of a website. It's something else entirely to get to a wrestling show and to cheer on your guy.
Yeah, and so, I don't know. I don't want Tyrus as champion. And so hopefully all the stories about new belts and everything, or specialized belts or whatever, are just disinformation out there. Really, if I had to go between Tyrus Murdoch and Cardona, I keep the title on Murdoch for now.
I think that's the right move too. But let me ask you this: if they end up putting the belt on Tyrus, are you done? are you finished with the NWA?
I don't know that I'll ever be finished with the NWA.
So you're like me, we're stuck.
I mean, it's hard.
That's what she said, by the way.
She wasn't wrong. And it's hard to justify that anyone should watch it. I mean, I can't really tell anybody, oh man, you need to go get this show and you need to go get the subscription. You need to go watch it on YouTube. I just really can't, because most of the people I know who like wrestling like what I like, and that would be like saying, hey, go find the worst comedy from the year, from the 90s, because nobody remembers the 90s anyway. So go find the worst comedies from the 90s and watch some of them.
Real quick, and Jeremy brings up a good point. Could this all still potentially be a work? Why did Nick plug Billy being on Busted Open? And I think the biggest reason for that is because, okay, so let's take 2 more steps back while we talk about this for a minute. One thing we do know about Billy Corgan is he's not always the easiest person to work with. He has alienated a lot of people over the years, including his bandmates from Smashing Pumpkins. Does anyone remember DRC? Am I saying that right? Besides just bandmates, I mean, the working relationship that he had with Dave Marquez, gone. The working relationship he had with Dave Lagana, gone. Nick Aldis, gone. Josephus was very close with Billy Corgan. I know that they'd even said that he had been to his house. He was on the road with them, filming with Dave Lagana. It was the 3 of them on the road for like 30 days. Before he passed away, their relationship was not in a good situation. And there's history. There's a series of, if Billy doesn't trust you, you're gone. And there's people in the front office of the NWA that we knew early on who are no longer with the NWA. I mean, does anyone remember Maureen? Gone.
Well, I think one of the issues there that we look at, I don't know that Billy ever had a relationship with Dave Marquez.
Maybe not.
I think Dave Lagana and Marquez knew each other.
Sure. And
I think that was a relationship. And this comes from a statement that, Belts by Dan had made when somebody asked, why he wasn't making the NWA titles anymore, the belts. And he said, really, his contact was through Marquez and Lagana. And so once Lagana left, I think Lagana was just delusional enough to think that Billy would need him and bring him back.
I think for sure he thought he was coming back. 100% he thought he was coming back.
And I think once he was gone, Billy was like, well, great. Now I don't have – I think Lagana was the one guy that could filter Billy's stuff. I think Billy would say, we need to book this, and Lagana would go, okay. But then he would try and filter it as best he could to something that made sense.
Yeah.
Even though I wasn't the biggest Lagana fan. He and Billy both had chips on their shoulders that were too big and they cared about too much.
Yeah.
And but I think when Lagana was gone, well, then that kind of ended the relationship with Marquez, because I don't think Billy really had a relationship with Marquez. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's any coincidence that Dave kind of disappeared once Lagana disappeared. I mean, like, they worked together sort of on that prime time, but my understanding is that didn't even go the way it was originally supposed to go.
Yeah, well, and like that, I mean, from my understanding, and again, I have a close relationship with Dave Marquez, and that I don't keep that a secret. Marquez would tell you that he was part of those conference calls. He was on those meetings during the pandemic, post Dave Lagana. He was at one point offered to kind of do what Dave Lagana did for the brand, but wanted to focus more on the United Wrestling Network. There was a lot of things going on during the pandemic. Had the pandemic not happened, maybe none of this would be happening today, but obviously it did. But you know, there was a lot of things that were moving before, you know, before Pat Kenny took over, before Maureen left, but, you know, before Dave Lagana left. As soon as the pandemic hit, things got shaky, and they still remain shaky even now. And this is just, you know, all of my inside information, that's all gone. I don't have any inside sources, but I know from what Nick Aldis has said publicly and what I heard privately in the past, he didn't love everything that Billy was doing, and they clashed a lot on the content. You know, but again, I'm going to go back to what we said earlier. You know, we've been saying it since the season started, since they came back from the pandemic. It's nothing new. It's just now that person was saying it behind closed doors, now saying it publicly.
So I don't know. So do you want to talk about the pay-per-view?
Yeah, we could do that. Real quick, I just want to put up these comments. Dave Scooby says, should put Lagana under a mask, let him continue to work. At this point, Lagana has no desire to work with the NWA. None. Vincent says, I heard a lot of issues people had with Billy is his insistence on comedy and silly gimmicks. I think Aldis wanted to bring in someone to help with the creative like Delirious. I still think that's a great idea. But, you know, Billy even said on Busted Open that not everything he does is for wrestling fans, that they're trying to get a deal with the television network. And some of the stuff he does is to draw in casual fans. But, like, I got to be honest, I don't see a casual fan turning it on and seeing Gags putting his tongue in Taryn Terrell's ear and saying, yeah, this is the show I've been waiting for.
Well, I was about to say, you know, look, you can't focus on the casual fan.
No.
Because a casual fan don't give a fuck. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Ding. You can ding me one. But, you know, they don't.
Yeah.
And they're not going to. And they're never going to.
Yeah.
And I think AEW proves that.
Yeah.
AEW audience, they've been around on TV, what, 3 years?
That sounds right.
Their audience has not grown.
Not really.
And shoot, if you look at Rampage, Rampage ratings are tanking. I mean, we're talking 300 to 400,000 when the TV studio was wanting 500,000. It was hoping for more since Dynamite was doing more.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you're not going to draw the fans. You know, everybody said AEW was to draw the lapsed WWE fans. Well, you're not going to draw them by doing a lot of the same shit.
Yeah.
And that's the same with Billy and the NWA. Hey, don't book like it was TNA or AEW or WWE because you want to get the casual. You know, I used to hear a lot of indie promoters just blast the hell out of WWE and say, well, you know, where real wrestling is kind of all at AEW.
Yeah.
And there are idiots out there. I'm sorry, Wrestle Talk guys. But don't tell me about how, AEW is a totally different style. No, not really.
No.
And, you know, but, you know, they blast the product, but then try to put out the same thing. They steal all the gimmicks. Oh, Money in the Bank. Well, we'll have our own form of Money in the Bank. Oh, you know.
The chip cash in.
Whatever.
Yeah.
You know, other indies do their own thing. Like that stupid championship challenge series where we had everybody have a chance to cash in Some cashed in advance, and one cashed in at the moment. 2 cashed in, I guess, at a moment. Only one person won so far. We have a chance for our second one if Chelsea Green can come out with the title.
Yeah. Real quick, Luthez said, I borrowed a biker's ride and rode it 100 miles for a Wrestling Eye magazine because it had an NWA Still Alive story in it. We are not casual fans. Yeah, we are not the casual fans, and we are. I think there's more like us than what Billy's trying to appeal to. So it's curious, right? And really, I hate to say it, but the only way that he's ever going to smarten up to this fact is when a lot of us start canceling their subscription. And it sucks because, there are a lot of bright spots to the NWA, but, as it is, they're not going to change until we force them to. And at some point, if Billy is losing money and it's not a fun environment for him, he's going to do one of two things. He's either going to change to get better, meaning he's going to hire somebody to help out with creative and maybe have a partnership on writing the storyline, or he's just going to shit can the entire thing, throw it in the closet and forget about it.
Well, like I said, anybody, and this is Tony Khan, this is Vince McMahon, this is Billy Corgan. Anybody that claims that they want to make a better, broader, more, growing fan base, but refuse to give up the booking is flat out lying.
Yeah.
The person they are flat out lying to is themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, I always say a person lies to themselves more than they lie to anybody else.
Right.
But if Billy wanted this to be successful, and Billy was getting, not everybody gives Billy flack over Gags the Gimp because not everybody is Nick Aldis, and not everybody could stick around that long under thing. I mean, look, my understanding, the reason that Joseph Hutton died hating Billy Corgan was because he was honest with Billy Corgan and told him that he didn't know what he was doing, and his booking was basically crap. Sure, he used, nicer language, but maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's finally what, did him in.
Yeah.
Billy didn't want to hear. Billy does not want to hear people who disagree with him.
Yeah, well, it's not just he's not the only one. Aldis was the same way. That's why Aldis is so block happy on the internet.
Yeah. Nobody wants criticism, and there's a difference between people who hate everything, just like there's a difference between people who love everything.
Yeah.
Not a fanboy fangirl to the extent that, the NWA is doing it, therefore I just love everything they do, and isn't it great, and isn't Gags great? And no, they put out a lot of crap since Billy Corgan. I have disliked more than I have liked. I mean, because I basically dislike Power most of the time.
Yeah.
I like the pay-per-views most of the time. But I dislike Power most of the time. And even some of the pay-per-views recently have not been as good, and they've certainly run too damn long. Please go back to, just 3 hours or maybe even 2.
Yeah.
Especially when I have to, drive back a couple blocks to do my thing. But, oh my gosh. Yeah, it's just get a grip. Do you want to be successful, or do you want to play booker promoter? If you want to play booker promoter and say, hey, I want to play booker promoter, I don't really care if this grows or doesn't grow. I'm enjoying myself, and that's all I care about. I'll give you props for honesty. I'll drop in every now and then and see who's doing what. But at least then I know I need to go somewhere else, do something else. You know, maybe find a new hobby to replace wrestling since so much of it's garbage anymore.
Yeah. Well, you know, and it's funny. Like I posted on Twitter, like, you know, maybe MLW would like us to start reviewing their show. And honestly, more people who are interested in that than I thought they would be. It's actually kind of shocked. Like, hey, Jay, don't do that. We need you to cover the NWA. No, not so much. Not so much. And, you know, now that Nick Aldis is gone, I wonder if the locker room would be acceptable to coming on this show. I don't know. I don't know if there was any like blowback from people behind the scenes wanting to be promoted on this podcast. I know that I wouldn't even bother to ask some people to come on here because I know Aldis would be like, "What are you doing?"
Maybe he'll come on now.
You know what? It would be funny if he did,
because now he can come on and tell us where we were right.
Yeah, but the problem is I'm still blocked, so I don't know. I probably can't.
That's what we have other people for. I have to take drugs.
Take drugs. I'll start talking about something else.
All right, you talk about something else.
All right. Oh, Jaden's here too. Hey, Jaden, welcome back. I hope you haven't been here long.
Only about like 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
That's okay.
I was actually looking for something to show up on the screen, but I couldn't find it, so I didn't bother.
Anyway, DK should message Aldis and see if he'll come on and spill the tea.
Well, what I'm hoping for is because our friend of the show, James Molyneux, did I say it right?
Jim Molyneux, yeah.
Jim. He doesn't go by James?
Does not.
Jim Molyneux
nope.
had expressed his interest in perhaps maybe bringing the former World's Heavyweight Champion to Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators. I mean, if that ever happens, I mean, maybe we can pull some strings and get, at least a brief interview with the former World's Heavyweight Champion.
I can tell you for a fact that when the belief was that he was living in Maryland until we realized he was working in Nashville, there was talk to bringing in Aldis for something.
Luther says wants us to know that weed is now legal in Missouri. So if you needed another reason to visit St. Louis, there you go. And that's another part of this whole, that's another wrinkle in all of this that is very, very worrisome because Nick Aldis literally lives in Nashville. He sleeps, his bed is near Nashville, within driving distance from where they were taping. And if he did not opt out of his contract, seemingly, believably, Billy Corgan would have kept paying him, even if he wasn't at the main event. Maybe he would have asked him to take a little bit less. But at the end of the day, he'd still be paying Nick Aldis to wrestle the mid-card and could still sleep in his own bed. And if that was still a six-figure salary for basically 12 dates a year and being able to sleep in his own bed, and he said no to that?
No wrestler in their right mind would like that. It's nice to get home early from an event. The best thing about Dog is it's in my hometown.
Sure.
But when I was part of wrestling, we were going up to Maine, down to the Carolinas and everywhere in between. And that was part of the fun.
Yeah.
Living like a rock star, having a different girl's house to sleep at every town. That was part of the fun.
I mean, I get that. I totally do get that part of it, but it just I don't know. Look, I can't pretend like I know what's going on in Nick Aldis's head. And like I said, maybe there is something else for him. Maybe he already has something booked. Maybe he already knows that there's something there that he has opportunity. It's still just so wild. It's so hard to believe that this relationship has come to an end, you know?
Like I said earlier, it's the best thing for Aldis.
Yeah,
I think Aldis needs a change of scenery.
I agree with that. I do agree with that.
If you didn't want to change the scenery, you'd probably still be working at Best Buy.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you're making a great point. Hell, if I didn't want to change the scenery, maybe I would have never done this podcast, you know?
Yeah, might have been an Ultimate Warrior podcast.
Well, like, remember back when we first started this podcast, it was strictly audio, and it was still a few years before I even jumped into the podcasting when we were doing this website. You remember the message boards? You do. I don't know if anyone else in the chat remembers. Maybe Luthez does. But, I mean, there was a long time from the inception of the website before we did the podcast, and it was about going out of Jay Cal's comfort zone to talk to people about wrestling, because that was the thing you were supposed to do, is have a podcast. It took a lot to get me to do the podcast, and then we started doing it. And, yeah, I mean, I guess I don't really know where I'm going with that statement, but you have to break out of your comfort zone. You have to challenge yourself to do new things. Nick Aldis has been on cruise control since losing the World Heavyweight title. Like, he hasn't done anything impactful for the NWA. What has he done since losing to Trevor Murdoch that's, like, brought any swagger to the NWA?
Honestly, when he teamed with Mickie James to wrestle on Impact.
Yeah, and that was, that helped Impact.
Yeah, but they were NWA people. It still created some kind of interest, a little buzz in the NWA. Not obviously as much as Cody Rhodes, but...
Right. Real quick, Jaden, media says, and I miss stealing the money back the girls would take from my wallet when they thought I was asleep. Did you ever do that, Jaden? Did you ever steal your money back?
No, see, I always slept with my chain wallet on.
Fair enough.
Kind of,
James Bell says, NWA had a positive push going. Bang, pandemic. They recover and start a push with Cardona, and he gets hurt. A company has to tread water until Matt heals, and they can start the story again. F Nick. Oh! F Nick. I mean, it's not as simple as black and white. Like, there's both sides here have some blame in this, right?
Here's the problem: is people are taking sides when they have no idea what's really going on, and there's a lot of tribalism. There's people that are going to leave the NWA because of Nick. There's people that are going to go fuck Nick Aldis because of the NWA.
Yeah.
Did they say? I mean, I know I said fuck Staples when I left Staples, but that's because they screwed me over, and that was years ago. But still,
I remember that.
That sounds painful, though.
Yeah, the Staples.
Well, sounds painful.
First, you get the staple gun. Oh, wait, no. Again, save that for my OnlyFans.
That sounds like a Nick Cage match.
Yeah, but people don't say when you go to another job and say, "Oh man, you screwed over that other company because you left to go with a job that paid you better money or gave you better opportunity or didn't make you want to slap people all the time." DK, people don't say that when you go somewhere else, but they say that when you leave the WWE or Impact or anywhere else. In the old days, you left a territory. You stayed there for a while. You got over. You got to the point where now you weren't the top person, so you moved somewhere else. You got somewhere where you weren't used very well, but then you usually go to another company and you used amazingly. You got some companies that paid you better, but they didn't use you as well. But then you go to another company who used you well, and they didn't pay you. You decide what was important to you and to your sanity and what kept you fresh, what put you in front of different crowds and different audiences. That's the same thing for wrestling now. People go, "Oh, he's a former WWE guy." That's because there was only WWE for really years.
Yeah.
There was never a problem with people leaving the WWF to the AWA to the Mid-South to the Jim Crockett promotions back in the day, because that's what you did. It's so much territorial tribalism and so much brandism that people need to realize that, as a professional, you need to go places to keep yourself fresh and over and give yourself different people to work and different experiences. It's the same thing for all them damn 40-milers that never go anywhere except for writing their two promotions in their close to their house, and one of them they're the booker for, and they put the championship on themselves.
Yeah, no, that's everything you're saying is like, it's truth, man.
I always throw out the truth. I'm telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Oh, Jesus. You went back in time a little bit, didn't you?
Yeah, I really did. If you know, you know.
Yeah, if you know, you know. The NWA, again, you're right, tribalism. There are people who are going to side and be like, "Yep, I'm on Nick Aldis' side. He's right," and they're going to follow Nick, and that's cool, man. That's absolutely that's your option. And some of us are going to stick with the NWA, and again, that's your option. And some of us, like me, I'm waiting to see what's next for Nick. I'm curious what he's going to do, and I'll support it if it's good. You know, if the whole rumors about the Jim Crockett promotion thing, if that's a real thing, I'll check it out. I'll see what it's all about. If he goes to AEW, I will celebrate him going to AEW. If he goes to WWE, same thing. The guy's a great athlete, all right? The personal feelings aside, he's a great athlete, and he's an asset to any company. Whether they're going to be able to utilize him the way he wants to be utilized is a different story altogether, but at the end of the day, I still want to see Nick Aldis succeed. And honestly, his success resonates with the NWA, because if he's successful elsewhere, it just shows what the NWA was doing with him was right. I don't know.
Okay, I got to point something out that kind of goes along this line.
Let's hear it.
Media M5, I love you, but let's not get ridiculous again here. Let's see how many people buy his legacy supplement product. NWA pushed it hard. Probably won't be many renewals for the product. It was a raging successful business before it ever started showing up on NWA.
This is true.
Okay. So this, and I'm sorry to call you out, but this is the crap I'm talking about here. His legacy supplement thing has absolutely nothing to do with the NWA, other than they bought some time on the cast to advertise. That's it. And how many people do you really think from the NWA are actually doing it in relation to all the other promoting and publication and things that they do? It was a business they had before the NWA. It's something they did. It was successful. Let's not go there.
Here's another thing too. If you're buying supplements because it's promoted on a wrestling promotion and not because the supplements are any good, and if you stop buying supplements because somebody who's no longer with that wrestling promotion, you shouldn't have been buying those supplements in to begin with. Supplements are meant to be bought. Supplements are meant to be bought because they help you and they do things for you, and you want to improve yourself. If you're buying Nick Aldis's TRT or whatever the hell he sells, and you're buying it because it's Nick Aldis, then you don't deserve any benefits you're getting.
And that's real talk right there.
He ain't wrong. Ain't wrong.
Matthew Underwood said, "Is this the Nick Aldis burial hour?" And I said, "No, it's far from it. I think
I'm putting him over. I constantly put him over.
We've doing this show than we have in a lot of them."
Yeah, and again, coming from the guy he called a ham sandwich eating jabroni, like, yeah, I still want to see the dude succeed.
Maybe he's meaning the locker room. I mean the chat. Sorry.
Maybe. Dave Scooby says, "Remember, Nick's a former Global Force Wrestling champion. Maybe Jeff can bring him into AEW in an invasion angle." Just kidding. Or am I? I don't know, Scoob. That, like, look, there's AEW's doing some wild stuff to try to get stuff to stick. We'll see. I mean, look, maybe he's going to go to Ring of Honor, right? Maybe he'll be the face of Ring of Honor. Maybe he'll challenge Jericho for the title. Who the fuck knows?
He'll probably be on Dark in a couple weeks. But who knows? Because that's how AEW goes. They get somebody, they put over the people with the ego, and then they disappear off television and show up on AEW Dark and Dark Elevation.
And then real quick, Media M5 says the other legacy sups have been around longer than Nick's. I don't know. Like, I've never even heard of the brand until I saw Nick talk about it. And then James Bell says, that's fucking bullshit. NASCAR is built on fans of your driver in the work car buying the product. This is no different a reaction than us buying Alliance merch. Hey, no, hold on now. Hold on. There's nothing wrong with you being mad that Nick Aldis is leaving. In my opinion, I'm of the mindset is I don't care if he's gone. Then I'm gonna continue to support the NWA whether he's here or not. Not one person in the NWA is gonna keep me a fan or not. My favorite person in the NWA right now is Jack Stane. If Jack Stane quits tomorrow, I don't stop watching the NWA because Jack leaves. Likewise, there's not one person that they could bring to the NWA that would make me watch if I wasn't already watching it. I take that back. There's a few people that could draw me in, CM Punk specifically. But again, you're allowed to like whoever you want to like, and you're allowed to dislike whoever you like. We're not here to tell you any of that. If you think Nick Aldis is an asshole, because look, I think he's an asshole. I do. But I also think he's a very talented asshole. I think he's an asset to anywhere he goes. And I do think that he should have shut his mouth on the way out the door. I agree with all that. But I'm also not going to tell somebody that, fuck Nick Aldis. And if that's you, that's cool, man. That there's no animosity from me how you handle this information. My
only issue is don't go saying that, somehow his legacy supplements are gonna, go down the drain because he's no longer on the NWA, because the NWA wasn't pushing him hard. The NWA didn't give a shit. He paid money for it.
He probably still buy time for it. Who knows?
Or
is the NWA going to turn that down? Turn on the money?
Or some other trade. Matthew Underwood says, you just tune in Aldis's AEW bound. He's in the DNA of AEW and natural replacement for Cody Rhodes, in your opinion. Well, see, that's probably the problem. It's in your opinion. Tony Khan fucks up everybody he brings in. And if he had problems working for Billy, I can't imagine what kind of problems he'd have working for Nick.
Well, the one guy he got right was Moxley, right? I would say Moxley's more over now in AEW than he was in WWE.
I'd say you're taking the wrong kind of supplements if you believe that.
You think Moxley's more over or less over now?
I don't believe he's any more over now than he was in the Shield. No.
Okay.
I believe the Shield was more over than just about anybody except right now, probably
Roman
Reigns.
I think I would say he's more over in AEW with the AEW fans.
Okay, that's fair.
Than he was in WWE with the WWE fans. But WWE fans are incredibly fickle. I mean, they were the ones that originally wanted Roman Reigns to break away from the group and become world champion. And then when that started, they said, "You're shoving him down our throat." And a lot of them wanted to see Dean Ambrose win the title and not Roman Reigns. And then he won the title, and they didn't like that he was champion and stuff. So WWE fans are, as bipolar as the former booker. But I mean, look, I have oh well, he's calling BS on you, Jaden.
On what? Bullshit. More people knew who. People still call Moxley Dean Ambrose.
I mean,
he might have been treated as a joke, but I know more people that call him Ambrose that are WWE fans and calling him Moxley that are AEW fans. Hell,
I mean,
WWE has 4 times as many fans watching the show. 4 times as many means 4 times as many know who you are. 4 is bigger than 1, Matthew.
I mean, look, there's truth to that. The ratings are for the WWE are much higher than AEW. And
same thing for the YouTube views. Same thing for the pay-per-view buys.
And when you look at wrestling as a whole, right? The common fan, when they think of wrestling, they don't think of AEW. They don't think of the NWA. They don't think of ECW. They don't think of New Japan. They think of the WWE.
How many people call cotton swabs Q-tips? How many people call bleach Clorox?
Over is greater than better known.
Bullshit. Better known means more money.
Back to what I said. He is more over with AEW fans than he was with WWE fans. That doesn't mean he's more over in general.
All right. Let me explain something to you. This is the Republican way of thinking. A lot of Republicans like to believe that they have a whole pie is better than having half of a pie, even if having half the pie ends up being more pie. Right. That is a lot of belief. That is that is generally the way Republicans promote their their economic thing. I'm learning about it now in class. So just because more people in AEW like him, he's got a bigger, more popular in AEW, there's way less people watching AEW. He may only been half as popular in the WWE. That's twice as many people that are watching it. Again, math.
Rosville is shaking their head, but I don't know who they're agreeing with.
I look. I think it's great that we have this fired up conversation about Dean Ambrose, John Moxley, but at the end of the day, none of it's the NWA. Now, Nathan Ogden brings up the fact that the NWA is a dead brand, but man, I hear you say that. I hear you say it's a dead brand, but I'm flying to New Orleans this Saturday morning to be at a pay-per-view Saturday afternoon to hang out with my buddy DKM over here, and we're going to watch an NWA wrestling show. It's a pay-per-view. I paid for tickets. I literally watch it every Tuesday on Fight, and I watch it sometimes on Saturdays. And then Ogden says, no, it died in 91. Well, I hate to break it to you, but 91, when you said it died, it was still 2 years later before New Japan left the promotion. It was 2 years after that the WCW left the promotion, 93. And then 5 years after that, it was being represented in the WWE. And then, in between that, ECW was involved with it, and they threw the belt down and they said it was dead then. But then Impact, 5 years after they were working with the WWE, Impact signed an agreement to license the NWA. And you had NWA matches on pay-per-view, which we hadn't seen since like 1986. But it was dead in 91. But then in 2000, it was on Impact, and then 5 years later, it was headlining arenas all across the United States, and I'm talking in Southern California, in Texas, in Florida, and in the Northeast with NWA on Fire. They had television. There was dozens of wrestling promotions representing the NWA. The World's Heavyweight Championship was on many different programmings, including Ring of Honor, including Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, including Combat Zone Wrestling. And then 5 years after that time period, then we see the championship being defended in New Japan Pro Wrestling at Wrestle Kingdom. So you could tell me it's a dead brand all day, Nathan. You could if that's what you believe, great, man. But like, I'm seeing the same NWA, different ownership, different champions, but it never stopped being defended. It never disappeared. If it's dead to you, hey man, I can't help you on that. But I mean, I watch the show every Tuesday, and it's still those same three letters. And you said, stop living in the past. We can't go back to the good old days. That's cool. You could say that, but again, Saturday.
Yeah, tell Disney that. Tell Star Wars that. Tell Marvel that. Tell DC that. Tell every movie that's being remade 75,000 times. They constantly go back to the good old days. You taking your member berries? Because that member berries sure make sure you remember them good old days.
And like I said, this Saturday, I'm going to a pay-per-view. So that's in the future. And it's called NWA's Hard Time 3. And they've done 3 of them.
Or they're doing a third one.
Well, they're doing the third one. And again, like Matthew Underwood's right here, the NWA should be pivoting to Cardona while grooming Clearwater. Yeah, there's like 10 guys on the roster that they could pivot to. I mean, look, Jack Stain is a former champion. Matt Cardona is a former champion. Could it be Tyrus? I don't want it to be Tyrus, but it could be Tyrus.
They're making that big fat belt for him that's also the size of the equator, but it could still be him. Probably going to be him now.
Again, Nathan.
Nobody about the age of 35, really, because we got a lot of wrestling fans that are like anywhere between the age of like 7 to 60 that show up in Dog, and they sure love the old school wrestling, and they keep saying it's the best wrestling promotion in South Jersey, because it is. People care about stuff. You're saying nobody over 35 sells like things like that. What about kids buying all the Transformers? Guess what? That was around when I was a kid. What about people doing He-Man now? That's run around when I'm out. Yes, yeah, I agree. Please no Tyrus. What about Star Wars? That was out before the year I was born. People don't care about old stuff. Then why is Star Wars so popular right now?
Look, to calm this down and remember that I need to get off in about 10 minutes so I can actually get
DKM
packed.
after dark.
So I can actually get packed. Look, what was the name of our little NWA's dead guy?
NWA dead guy?
No, the guy that was saying it. Who was
Nathan.
that?
Nathan.
Yeah, Nathan. Nathan, if the NWA is dead, you're watching the wrong podcast. Look, here's the thing. If the NWA is dead, a lot of promotions were never born.
Yeah.
And that includes MLW, that includes ROH. That, I mean, you know, let's just, I don't know that'd be any more disrespectful to the NWA's legacy than Microplata. And
hey, real quick, I want to say this though too, Nathan. Just because you got us fired up doesn't mean we don't enjoy the conversation. Come back next week. We'll talk some more wrestling if you're here, and it'll be about the NWA.
Well, can you talk about this zombie, the NWA, that won't stop chewing on everybody in its way?
The NWA is like a cockroach, man. It doesn't die. It's going to outlive all of us.
Doesn't matter how many times you try to kill it, it does not die. ECW tried to kill it. ECW did. ECW been dead twice. They died on their own. And the clown brought them back to be goofy, and then they died again.
That's why the ECW had a zombie.
Oh, we were supposed to go over the pay-per-view, but we're running out of time. Real quick,
the pay-per-view. Everybody who we think will win won't. Everybody who we want to win probably won't.
Real quick, go over the matches, and we'll spend 5-10 seconds each saying who we're going to win.
Okay, here we go. Hard times. Mercurio, Magic Jake, and Jack Stane taking on Mayweather, JTG, and the Pope.
I hope lung cancer wins with Magic Jake.
Dane's group.
All right, the heels win. Okay, next up for the television title, who do we got? Kazana or Clearwater?
I want Clearwater.
I want Clearwater, but it'll be Kazana.
I think it's definitely going to be Kazana, which is a shame. Next up, World Junior Heavyweight title, Homicide, Kerry Morton.
Damn
I hope Homicide. Again, I'm sorry, DK.
I said, damn well better be Homicide.
I want Homicide. I think Morton's going to win it.
I agree. Now this match is officially canceled, so we'll just move on. We've got the Fixers versus the Spectaculars. Who's going to walk away as your new United States Tag Team Champions?
And which belts do they have?
Yeah.
I think Vinny's cousins are going to win.
All right.
The Fixers better win.
Pretty Empowered or Maddie and Misa?
I want Maddie and Misa.
I think Misa pick Pretty Empowered.
I'm a big Ella Envy fan. The American Treasure, Dak Draper or Scion?
Draper's incredibly talented, and in the future, I think he may make a great champion. But right now, it's Scion's time.
And what do you think, DK?
Scion.
I think Scion's going to win, but I agree with you, Jaden. I think Dak Draper is the guy that is really going to be. This is with Aldis leaving. This is a guy that has opportunity to really break through the next level.
Hey, Roswell says Cassana is the future of the NWA, baby. Learn about it with a thinking face emoji. And I want to know what she's smoking and where I can get some.
Yeah, man. I don't know. Let's go back to the matches. Next up, we have. Oh, I should take down the comment there. Let me take that down. We got EC3 versus Tom Latimer. Who you got, Jaden?
I want EC3 to win, but I'm starting to not dislike Latimer anymore. So, but I still want EC3 to win.
DK?
Well, Latimer should win, which is why EC3 is going to.
Real quick, do you think that the winner of this match is going to be leveraged in the world title picture down the road?
I think if it's Latimer, he will be. I don't know that if it's EC3. I don't know that EC3, despite his title runs in TNA, right now is at a world champion, an NWA world champion. He's a smaller guy. He's only about 210 pounds.
He's also svelte.
Yeah. With the exception of Cardona, they've stuck with the bigger guys. I tend to think they'll probably do that again. I mean, Cody doesn't count because Cody was Cody.
Cody was Cody.
Yeah.
So, okay. Next match, the Voodoo Queen casket match, Natalia Markova versus Max the Impaler.
I think Natalia Markova's surgical doctor wins, but I think the Max the Impaler comes out the victor in this match.
DK?
Yeah, I think Max the Impaler is probably a face, despite the fact that she's with Dumbo.
Yeah, it's hard to root against Max because they are so dominant in the ring, and I really feel like Max has the best luck at dethroning Camille so far. I think Max is the best person to do it. But yeah, I agree. I think Max goes over Natalia right here. She's still like disposable. Natalia, unfortunately, they haven't done enough to make her meaningful yet. She needs to get some more victories before she gets higher on the roster, and I don't know if that's going to happen. Next up, we have this match, the triple threat match with Kylan King, Camille, and Chelsea Green. Any guesses?
I think Chelsea Green goes back to the WWE.
All right.
So, and I can't see Kylan King defeating Camille unless she pins Chelsea Green. And that's something stupid that they might do. But I just hope they keep the belt on Camille, even though she's starting to get tired as champion. And she should be going out to greener pastures where she can get more exposure and use her talent. That she's right now the best thing the NWA has. So, Camille.
DK?
I'd like for Camille to win it, but I think it's actually a toss-up. Especially since Camille doesn't have to take the loss, and I can see them doing something stupid like that. Another rumors that that Hunter is interested in bringing Chelsea Green back. I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know if it would also involve Cardona going back or not, because I'd always heard Hunter liked Zach. So, you know,
I
want it to stay on Camille. I don't know that it will.
To be honest with you, I kind of wish they would take the belt off of Camille, but I don't think there's a bad choice in this. And even if Chelsea Green ends up back in the WWE at some point in 2023, taking the belt off Camille just for a brief moment might give a chance to see the belt somewhere else. There's still a lot of good talent in the NWA, and I don't know that I want Kylan King to win the title, but I don't hate any of the options. Camille's probably the best option, though.
Okay, next.
Sorry, main event, Murdoch. This is the Murdoch, Tyrus, and Cardona triple threat match. Does Trevor leave as champion?
As much as I think he should, I don't think he does. I'm putting money on Tyrus winning and pinning Matt Cardona.
DK? Sorry.
There seems to be a concerted effort to make us believe that Tyrus is going to win. Now, sometimes that's done us a swerve. Murdoch should come out as champion. They've killed Cardona. And with that stupid Rolando, regurgitate, whatever, Freeman storyline. So, Missouri DKM from I don't remember what we're talking about, Lou.
That's where you get the drugs.
Oh, we're getting the drugs in Missouri. Okay, thanks.
They need drugs. Whether
I probably will be up there for the next anniversary show.
They need drugs, by the way. The St. Louis Blues are playing there. Luthez.
Real quick, Luthez wants to know: does the UK plate stay or go with Aldis's exit? And if it does get replaced, what does it get replaced with?
I think it probably. I mean, the belt's supposedly already made, so it'll be one of two things. They'll either go back to the classic, or more than likely they'll just keep the belt because does it really matter what flag's on it?
The two matches that I didn't have graphics for that I want to ask you guys about too is we have the MLW Openweight National Championship between Davey Richards and Colby Corino. Jaden, I know you're a big fan of Colby Corino. What do you think?
Oh, Davey Richards. He's not going to lose an MLW title on an NWA card.
DK?
Oh, yeah. I mean, who's going to win is August. The question is, can he make Colby look as good as he made Thrillbilly look?
No Thrillbilly at this show, by the way.
I did notice that, and, you know, good. Maybe they can't screw him up. I'm trying to figure out how, what, why they book. Or, you know, he might have other commitment somewhere else, too. I don't know. I don't really know how much he wrestles outside the NWA.
There also might be dark matches.
Well, that's confirmed. Poyo and Thrillbilly won't be there.
It's all your fault. They were on a podcast last week.
Not on mine.
They're here. They were. They were on. We were talking to them. Well, at least Poyo.
In the chat. I mean, that's different.
Nope. Guilty by association.
The next thing is the World Tag Team titles, La Rebellion versus Hawk Ari in Hawk Ari's hometown, by the way.
Hawk Ari, they booked the damn thing. It's their promotion, kind of. They better win. Hometown.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you on that one. DK, what do you think?
They should win. It was a blown off storyline opportunity throughout the tapings, but I mean, Hawk Ari should win. I mean, look, I don't know if you guys follow Luke on Twitter, but he's probably done more promoting of this event since he's, you know, kind of the one behind it.
He's a promoter. He knows what he's actually doing.
Right. And so, you know, he's pushing both shows strong. They need to win it. One, because it gives PJ something to do. Who, you know, holding a title with his dad, tag title with his dad, unlike the Mortons, wouldn't be a bad thing.
No, that would be a father-son combination we could all get behind.
Right.
I don't.
And to run real back, you know, I am scared that they will put the title on the junior heavyweight title on Kerry. And we've spoken before. Kerry's not at the same level. He wasn't really somebody who wanted to be a wrestler until just recently. He's too young, he's too inexperienced, and he should not be given something that you're calling a world title at this point. I mean, this isn't like the television belt, which is very obviously low in the pecking order. This is something that, you know, this should be a top belt for the lower weight guys.
Yeah.
And it would be a mistake to put it on Kerry. It would be a mistake to put it on PJ even. They need to get it on. They need to have it on a veteran like they do currently and leave it on some veterans. And this is where we're talking about like the
Rhett Titus,
the Drapers, the Flip Gordons even, you know. And, you know, these are the guys that need to be in the heat with it. Billy, stop blowing Ricky and, you know, do the right thing here.
So that's going to basically do it. I think initially we had wanted to spend more time with the pay-per-view. We didn't even cover Power tonight just because they had too much to talk about. But this is what we do every Thursday here on the Alliance Guys podcast. And you can check us out on Tuesday. There'll be a very special episode of the pre-party, which will be featuring Tim Wood because I'll still be flying home from Nolans. And then, of course, maybe this weekend, DKM and I might put up some content from New Orleans. We'll see if we can get maybe some of you NWA fans that are out there to join us, and maybe we'll talk some NWA while we're there. Dave Scooby wants to remind us that Jay Spade is there, and I would love to see Jay Spade get an opportunity to wrestle for that junior heavyweight title. That match was promised to him months ago before the Crockett Cup, before they crowned the champion. And then lastly, Dave Scooby says the TV tapings will be in Nashville in December. I won't be there, but hopefully some of you guys will be. But we're going to call it a night because...
Real quick, there's no television tapings because Rhett's promoting a 20-man New Orleans Drum Bowl or something.
Oh, yeah. No. The TV tapings, they're doing a Power Trip tapings, which will basically cover 4 episodes after the pay-per-view. And then they'll be doing TV tapings in December, which will probably kick them off to January to start off the new year. So that's going to do it for us tonight. I do appreciate all you guys being here. Nathan, come back, man. Let's talk some more NWA next time. But that's going to do it for us this week. Until next time.
Real quick, Nathan, if I leave the Alliance guys, does that mean you're going to not buy any more Alliance guys merchandise?
No,
because obviously I'm the star of this car show.
It wasn't Nathan. That was Matt who bought the merchandise.
Oh,
yeah,
Matt.
If I leave, you're going to not sell merch. You're not going to buy. You're going to throw away your Alliance-Wrestling.com mug, which I just got in the mail today, by the way.
Oh, sweet. By the way, there's more merch up there, including fanny packs, hats. We might even do a bikini. I've got a wife who likes to wear bikinis. But that's going to do it, guys. Thank you for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next week. No gravy cake. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thanks for joining the stream. This has been a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. We genuinely appreciate your support. Would you consider subscribing so you'll never miss a future episode? I'd also like to remind you we do a live stream every Tuesday at 5 p.m. before NWA Power. You can find us on social media at The Alliance Blog. And until next time, we are The Alliance.